Hi, guys. This week, our focus in reading is going to be literature from and about the Civil War. It goes in correlation with our social studies pages where you are going to be learning about the Civil War. And this is our last major unit. So it's going to be filled with different types of literature. This was a very tragic and sad time, so often there aren't a whole lot of things that are really happy about this time period, but I think you will enjoy one of the stories that I'm going to share with you that is about some people who gained their freedom during this time. I want to start today's reading off with a little bit of a biography. Everybody knows that President Abraham Lincoln was president during the Civil War, but his right-hand man, so to speak, was Ulysses S. Grant. And I wanted to read you a short biography of him as well. And this is a kind of a little sketch of him. And here's the reading of Ulysses S. Grant. Ulysses S. Grant was the 18th President of the United States, being elected as a Republican in 1869. His name and reputation, however, were made after his brilliant command of the Union Army during the U.S. Civil War. Born at Point Pleasant, Ohio, Hiram Ulysses Grant, the son of a tanner, spent his childhood at school in nearby Georgetown. A tanner was someone who tanned animal hides and made them into shoes and such. He enrolled at West Point Academy, giving Ulysses as the first name, and graduated in 1843, beginning what was to be a rather undistinguished military career, until he resigned his commission in 1854. He did, though, win 2 medals for bravery during the Mexican War. As a civilian, he tried many business ventures, ending up as a clerk in his father's business. When the Civil War broke out in 1861, Grant was recommissioned as a colonel in the Union Army. After several unsuccessful campaigns where he demonstrated his brilliant understanding of military tactics and strategy, he captured Vicksburg in 1863, taking 31,000 prisoners. The next year, he was appointed lieutenant general and given command of the entire Union Army. His relentless drive against General Robert E. Lee's Confederate Army led to the abandonment of Petersburg and Richmond and to the subsequent surrender of the Confederacy at Appomattox Courthouse on April 9, 1865. A hero for his military exploits, Grant was elected to the presidency for the first time in 1869. He was a far less successful politician than a soldier, and his administrations suffered from corruption, scandals, and inefficiency, although he was reelected in 1872. So that's a little bit of information. He was fighting against the leader of the Confederate Army, which was General Sherman, William Tecumseh Sherman. He served his main man was General William Tecumseh Sherman, not who he fought against. He served with Grant, and they fought successfully together during the Civil War. He was considered the architect of modern warfare. Sherman was made commanding general of the army during Grant's presidency. So the fact that they fought together in the Civil War led Grant, when he became president, to ask Sherman to come into his cabinet. I also want to read to you a short biography about one of the leaders of the abolitionist movement, which was leading into this Civil War. And his name was Frederick Douglass. And here is a sketch of him as well. Before, during, and after the Civil War, Frederick Douglass was a tireless campaigner for the freedom and rights of Black American slaves and ex-slaves. His powers of oratory and his intellectual abilities led to his rise from a life of slavery to becoming an advisor to Abraham Lincoln and minister to Haiti. Oratory means speaking. He was a great public speaker. Born Frederick Augustus Washington Bailey in Tuckahoe, Maryland, he was the son of a slave and was sent to work in Baltimore. Here he educated himself with the help of his master's wife, but his continual poor treatment led him to running away in 1838. He reached New Bedford, Massachusetts, where he worked in a shipyard under the assumed name of Douglass. In 1841, he attended an anti-slavery meeting in Nantucket and was so impressed the audience with his speech, he was hired as a lecturer and a speaker for the Massachusetts Anti-Slavery Society. Douglass not only lectured throughout the northern states, he also took action such as sitting in white-only train cars from where he was forcibly removed. In 1845, urged on by his friends, he went to England where he continued to lecture. His friends there raised money to buy his freedom on his return to the United States in 1847. He set about founding the abolitionist newspaper called North Star and running the Underground Railroad in Rochester, New York, to continue helping escaped slaves flee the South. Douglass was friendly with the famous abolitionist John Brown, and after John Brown's arrest in 1859, he feared reprisals from the U.S. government and again fled the country for 6 months. After the Civil War, Douglass became the recognized leader and spokesman for the freed slaves and was appointed U.S. Marshal for the District of Columbia. So he had a very, very important impact on this time period. We are going to read in tomorrow's lesson a story called Escape to Freedom. And if I'm not mistaken, there was a film made about this story, but I'll have to look that up and maybe send you links to it if I can. There's also something else I want you to look up that is just for fun. There was a very, very popular pencil and pen game that was played during the Civil War, and in the past I've always gotten my students to play this game. It's kind of similar to tic-tac-toe, but I'll show you a little bit of it, and you can look it up. It's really pretty easy to do, but it's called Pigs in a Pen. And so if we were actually at school, we would be having a Pigs in a Pen tournament to kind of go along with this reading. But anyway, it's a grid of dots, and all you do is you take turns drawing a line wherever you want to, and the idea is to eventually get to where you can actually draw a box. And if you get a box, of course, you know, your opponent's going to try to keep you from getting the box. But if you get a box, you actually win it by putting your initials in it. And this was a game that people would play during the Civil War. You could actually play it in the dirt as well. But anyway, if you want something to do this week, get a Pig in a Pen. You can look online. I think they may even have them where you can print them out. But this is like a game that's already in progress. And you can see how people put their initials in the boxes to indicate that they were the last one to close the box off and they won it. I'll read you a little bit about Abraham Lincoln as well in one of our reading videos this week. And of course, there were some very famous songs that were sung during this time period as well, and I may even have a chance to do some of those. But anyway, that's reading for today. If you notice, you're going to read some pages in your social studies workbook that'll continue this information about the Civil War, and there is a video for you to watch that's kind of a synopsis of the Civil War. So that is our combined reading and social studies topic for the week. Bye.